I was misfiled into the predator handling annex the same way I was misfiled into most things at Caldreth. A clerk somewhere read Field Observation, Hallworth Marsh Colony, and decided that meant environmental science exchange, not a 15-year-old who'd spent his whole life learning which parts of a bog wanted to kill you. Nobody corrected the form. I didn't ask them to. I just showed up to Bay 9 with the rest of the cohort and stood at the rail with my notebook while handler Veshun Caldrath explained, in a voice that didn't rise or fall, exactly how we were going to fail. Nothing enters this enclosure without full sensor telemetry, she said. Her skin plates ran a flat administrative gray while she said it, which I'd learn later meant she believed it completely. The specimen has defeated 41 tagging attempts in 42 days. You will not improve on that number through instinct. You will improve on it through instrumentation. The specimen was called a Vantic on the intake sheet, which told you nothing, and it lived in 6 acres of engineered bog scrub behind glass that fogged if you breathed on it wrong. 6 legs, a hide that shifted tone in under a second, and a habit of vanishing between one drone sweep and the next, like the enclosure had swallowed it. 41 attempts, everyone logged, everyone clean, everyone a miss. The rest of the cohort had grown up with sensor gear the way I'd grown up with waders, something you put on without thinking about it, that told you where the danger was before your own eyes could. Caldreth ran on that assumption from the ground floor up. Every corridor had a telemetry feed running along the ceiling molding, quiet green light, always watching something. I'd spent 2 weeks in general intake before the annex before I understood that the quiet wasn't peace, it was confidence. Nobody at Caldreth had ever needed to sit still and wait for a marsh to decide whether it trusted them. Threll Sovane laughed when I opened the notebook. Threll was Ilvaran, senior cohort, top of the tagging roster 2 years running, and his plates ran a bright, mocking gold whenever he found something beneath him, which was often. Paper, he said, like the word itself was the joke. You draw it a picture and it walks up and introduces itself? Something like that, I said, and didn't look up from the page. I want to say I had a plan on day 1. I didn't. What I had was a habit, built somewhere I'd rather not think too hard about, of writing down what I saw before I decided what it meant. Back home, the sensors didn't work. Too much iron salt in the marsh water. Too much interference off the collapsed relay tower nobody had the parts to fix. So if you wanted to know when the sink eels moved or when the bank adders sunned themselves, you watched, and you wrote it down, and eventually the marsh told you its schedule whether it meant to or not. My father kept 40 years of those ledgers in a waterproof box under the floor. I'd filled 6 of my own before I turned 12. So I watched the Vantic the way I'd watch anything that wanted to eat me. I didn't run a drone sweep. I didn't ask for sensor access, which Vesh wouldn't have granted anyway. The annex ran on a strict tag and telemetry protocol, and an unassisted human standing at a rail with a pencil didn't fit anywhere in it. I just watched, at the same time every rotation, and I wrote down what the light did, and what the scrub did, and what the Vantic did in relation to both. The other cadets burned through their allotted drone hours in the first week. 3 of them cornered it against the east wall on day 4 and lost telemetry lock in under 2 seconds. Its hide matched the wall's mineral striping so exactly the drone's optics simply stopped registering a target. A cadet named Farron ran a heat differential sweep on day 6 that should have worked on anything with a working circulatory system. The Vantic dropped its surface temperature to match the ambient scrub, and the sweep came back with 6 acres of identical noise. Threll himself tried twice, with drone packs the rest of us weren't cleared to use, and came back both times with clean footage of nothing. Vesh logged every failure without complaint, and without surprise. I got the sense the number didn't bother her, the method did. She believed, the way some people believe in weather, that a problem this size required a bigger instrument, not a smaller one. I noticed the pattern on day 9. It wasn't dramatic. The Vantic shed a thin, translucent dermal layer every 11 days. I'd caught 2 molts in the notebook by then, both near the same root cluster on the enclosure's north slope, both a little after the light through the canopy dome shifted color at what the annex called first dim. And both times, for a window I clocked at somewhere under 4 minutes, its camouflage ran a half beat behind its surroundings. Not gone, just late, like a man catching his breath before he stands back up. I didn't tell anyone. I wasn't being clever about it. I just didn't think anyone would want to hear it from me, and I wasn't sure yet what 4 minutes was worth. On day 13, the 10th molt window by my count, I asked Vesh if I could enter the enclosure without a drone escort. Her plates went a color I hadn't seen from her before, somewhere between the flat gray of policy and something closer to genuine surprise, though I only recognized it as that afterward. The ordnance is full sensor telemetry, she said, not partial, not human judgment in place of telemetry. I'm not asking to replace the telemetry, I said. I'm asking because the telemetry hasn't worked in 42 days. And I think I know something it doesn't. Threll laughed again, quieter this time. Vesh didn't laugh. She looked at me for a long moment, the way you look at a reading on an instrument you don't trust yet, and then she looked at the enclosure, and then she checked the light through the canopy dome against a chart on her sleeve. You have until first dim plus 4 minutes, she said. No drone. No weapon beyond the standard tagging clip. If you are wrong, you explain it to the review board yourself. I went in with the clip in one hand and the notebook in the other, which probably looked ridiculous. And I want to be honest and say my hands weren't perfectly steady, because 6 acres is a lot of ground to be wrong on. But I wasn't guessing. I walked to the root cluster on the north slope and I waited, the way you wait at a sink eel hole, without moving more than you have to, until the light shifted color the way it had shifted color 9 times before in my notes. The Vantic came up out of the scrub 11 feet from where I stood, mid-molt, its hide running a half beat behind the light change, gray where the scrub had already gone amber. I had maybe 3 minutes left in the window. I crossed the distance slow, the way you cross towards something that startles easy, and I got the clip on its dorsal ridge on my second try, and it didn't bolt, because by the time its camouflage caught up to what was actually standing next to it, the clip was already on. 41 minutes. That's what the log showed when Vesh pulled it later, from the enclosure door opening to the tag confirming. I hadn't been counting. I'd been watching the Vantic's hide finish its catch-up shift, gray sliding into amber a beat too late, same as it always did, same as it always would until it learned a reason not to. Vesh met me at the rail. She didn't say anything for a while. Her plates ran through 2 or 3 colors I didn't have names for, and then settled into something quiet and pale that I never saw her use again. Not once, in the rest of my time at the annex. 41 attempts, she said finally, and you found what none of them found. I didn't find anything, I said. I just wrote down what it did until it told me when it was tired. She took the notebook from me, careful, like it might come apart in her hands, and paged through it. 9 molts, 9 timestamps, 9 small sketches of root clusters and light angles that meant nothing to anyone who hadn't sat there and watched them happen. She didn't say she was wrong. She wasn't built to say that, I think, any more than I was built to explain it any better than I just had. She handed the notebook back and logged the tag, and under method she wrote something I only saw weeks later, when the file crossed my desk by accident. Unassisted observation, extended interval, subject verified, no instrument listed, just my name, and the number of minutes, and 9 dates in a Marsh boy's handwriting that the censors never once managed to read.